to raise that, and we can discuss over that. So you can share your questions or queries probably by message to your organizer, and then we can take up questions uh, at a later stage. Does that work, Praveen?
Yes, sir. I think we
All
can
right,
take questions at the end if it is okay.
sure. So, all right. So, I generally don't like conversations which are more one-sided. But yeah, this being a webinar, I'll be talking more, and probably you guys will just listen, and then you can post your questions there, and then we can have a Q&A session at a later stage, right? So, how has it been in this last 2 3 months of situation? So you guys can turn on your videos if you have bandwidth to turn on, so that I can uh, see and talk to people who are live. Otherwise, it looks like I'm talking to this computer. Hi, somebody turned on the video just now. Okay, so let's go ahead. So I'll just share one of the screens. Is it visible? So these are some of the questions that I got. Praveen, I would need your help in saying if something is not visible, if people are not, if I'm not audible.
Okay, okay, sir. I'll let you know. No problem.
Yeah. So whatever I have shared is visible right now.
Yes, sir.
All right. So these are some of the areas that uh, they they wanted me to address. So let me, before I start this, let me give a brief background about myself. My name is Sunil. I completed engineering in 2004 from Davangere, and then I came to Bangalore after that, and then I've been working in the in IC design industry for last 15 years. Uh, then currently I am a co-founder and director in one of the companies called Frenestech Private Limited. Some of your seniors from Vidyavartaka are working with us. This Praveen, this group is only Vidyavartaka students or anybody outside of Vidyavartaka also?
Outside of Vidyavartha also some people are there.
Okay, okay. So some students from Vidyavartaka and ATME College of Engineering, some guys from JC College of Engineering are working with us. Um, we have been running this company for the last 3 years with around 130 engineers working with us, and I'm one of the co-founders and directors in this company. Along with this, I also conduct training programs in Mysore, in Vidyavartaka College of Engineering and ATME College of Engineering for in VLSI design. And recently, we have launched a training program on IoT embedded systems in Vidyavartaka. So this is a very brief about ourselves and about me and what I've been doing so far. So coming to the topic that your college has asked me to present today, the opportunities for EC students. So hope all the guys here in this webinar are EC students. E- See, um, it is not necessary that everything is applicable only to ECE, but these are some of the things that are applicable to ECE. There are other domain engineers also can look at these opportunities for themselves. So these are the six topics that I have planned to speak today. Uh, let's start with what is the most interesting topic for all of you: the job prospects or the last one, which is being entrepreneurs? Hello, anybody can unmute themselves and speak. You guys have anything you guys want to share? Say something. Which is the one you guys want me to start with? Want me to start with job opportunities or how to be successful entrepreneurs?
So somebody is asking the skills to be an electronics engineer.
Okay, so we'll start with there. All right. So skills to be an electronics engineer. See, skills, there are common skills that are required to be a good engineer in the first place. And then to be an electronics engineer, there are some skills that could be of some importance, right? So let's look at those things. So these are some of the things that you need to have for being a good electronics engineer. See, today, the world, everywhere you need programming as a basic fundamental requirement, right? Whether you want to be an electronics engineer, computer science engineer, or any engineer for that matter, doesn't matter. Basic programming skills have become part and parcel of engineers. So, coming to fundamentals of what is RLCVI. So, RLCVI is resistors, inductors, capacitors, voltage, and current. These are some of the very fundamental things that you guys would have studied. But if we ask engineers on any of the questions related to these things, they are totally confused with whatever they have learned, especially when it comes to network analysis and subjects like that. Whether it is network analysis, control systems, doesn't matter. So wherever we ask anything on the fundamentals, there is no appropriate direction of answering. So that's one of the critical areas where electronics engineers needs to focus on to be able to be a good electronics engineer. Right. So going further down into it, the depth goes. Uh, so one of the first basic thing is basic engineering subjects. If you see your semester, the first four semesters covers the fundamental subjects that are required for the next four semesters. And most of the engineers forget the concepts that they learn, be it microprocessors or microcontrollers, be it the fundamentals of network theories. They don't remember that fundamentals of DSP, that is signals and systems. They don't remember that the control systems. Nobody remembers that. So these are most important subjects where we see students are have forgotten these subjects, right? They will be all lost with the latest subjects that they would have studied. But when it comes to work, these are the ones which will make you or give you a job or get you a job, right? Because the concepts that you study at a higher level are most likely very to be frank, they are highly outdated. Okay, so what we work in the companies versus what you study, it will be outdated. So what helps you pick up to the speed is the fundamentals. Fundamentals doesn't change. Everything is built on that fundamentals, right? So you got to be very strong on those fundamentals to be good engineers. And then the next is very important is the math. So math, it could be depending on the domain that you choose to work, different maths will come into your help. It could be linear algebra, it could be matrix, it could be regressions that you would have learned. or it could be the transforms that you would have learned, Fourier transforms or Z transforms, all these things. So these things will come into your help in different domains. You need not be an expert in everything, but if you have understood the concept of it and you know where to look for the equations, Google gives you all the information. You don't need to remember all information. You need to have understanding of the concept of any of these mathematics that are required for your domain of interest. And beyond that, if you are choosing a specific domain, for that domain there are basics required. So those basics should be good. For example, if you want to come into VLSI design, IC design, then you should be good in the very basics of voltage current relationships with the resistors, capacitors, and then the transistor operations. So these are the fundamentals required for us. And then beyond that, if you have studied well, then probably the basics of VLSI. The basics of VLSI will anyway you will learn as part of your career, but then if you know it, it is good. Otherwise, these things are mandatory. Without that, you will not be able to get into any job in VLSI. Or it could be even fundamentals of digital electronics, the fundamentals of analog electronics. These are some of the things that are critically required. So programming skills, if you guys are good in any of the programming skills, it need not be C or C++. It could be any generic programming. It is that is why it is written as programming skills, not any specific programming language. Language you can learn. Skill is something you need to develop as a practice. So for language, you have a lot of Google material. But for skills, you don't have Google material. You have to ask Google what you want. Then it will throw up the either the command or it can be a syntax. Whatever you need, it will throw up. But you need to know what you want to ask it. So that is a skill required. And the programming skill is more of algorithmic rather than the uh, the writing the code itself, right? So you got to be very clear about that. So yeah. So then apart from that, then the problem solving skills, good analytical skills, analyzing a given problem and then proposing a solution to the problem. So these things has to be developed over a period of time. They don't come just like that. And you as engineers, you would already have developed to some extent. There would be some focus required to get the depth of it. So yeah, so good analytical skills, problem solving. So problem solving is not like ability to solve, but it is a mindset to solve the problems. We observe a lot of engineers coming to us, and then this is what they do. There is an error that throws up in the tool. They come to us. This is an error. Now you are paid to solve the problem. You are not paid to come and report a problem as engineers, right? So if your job was to report a problem, then probably would not hire engineers. You would hire a 10th pass guy, isn't it? So your job is not to just report problems. As part of your work, problems are always there. That is why you are paid. Your job is to go ahead and solve the problems. So for you to have solved the problem, you have to have that mindset that you want to solve the problem, right? It is not about just go get some answer from somebody and then tell to somebody and then okay, the problem is solved. No, that is one time. So we always say, right, that you need to know how to fish. It's not that we don't give you a fish, but we teach you a fish how to do fishing. So that's what it means. You got to have that problem solving mindset. So once that mindset is there, you will find a way to solve it, right? Then obviously basic communication skills are very critical to be a good engineer in any this thing. Communication skills doesn't only mean speaking skills; it also mean listening skills. A lot of engineers that we have seen, we will be telling something, and they will listen half of it. They just jump into doing something, and then come back half done and saying, "Okay, we didn't understand how to go ahead from here." They would not have listened completely to what communication has been given to them. These are some of the things that we face in the industry on a day to day basis. So, for a project manager, consider having a 20-25 people team, and people come with these kind of problems. He was telling something, they heard half of it, they went back and did half the job, came back saying that this is not working. What would be the feeling of that guy? Right, so a lot of issues in the company because of this basic communication skills. It's not about just speaking is a second aspect of it. The first and the primary aspect is the listening skills. You got to develop that listening skills to be a effective engineer. Then last but not the least, yes, aptitude is a very basic requirement for all engineers. And then a real good attitude of hardworking to be in electronics domain. See, electronics domain is uh, not a very easy domain, right? It is, you have studied, if you have been in 4 years of engineering, especially in electronics, you know how much of struggle or effort you guys put as compared to let's say a computer science engineer, or let's say a civil engineer, or let's say a mechanical engineer. The core electrical and electronic subjects are very tough in nature by themselves. So if you have passed it, you have developed good enough skills. Now you got to have the attitude to spend energy in making sure you deliver well as uh, earn your reputation in the companies. For that, you need to have very good attitude rather than not just the aptitude. We have a lot of people coming with this issues. So a lot of engineers get rejected even though they have all these basic requirements of a good fundamentals in programming, in basic subjects, everything, but still they finally lose jobs in the last round in our industry. That is mainly because of this attitude issue. So you guys have any questions? All right. So I think let's move on to uh, next topic. What is the topic you guys prefer us to talk? Was this a brief enough for you to look? You had any specific queries in this section? Okay. So so can we move ahead, Praveen?
Yes, sir, you can.
Okay. Any specific topic that they want me to cover next?
Nobody has posted. I think you can choose.
Opportunities in hardware, job prospects. All right. So yeah, let's open this. Uh, so hope all of you guys are able to see the slide or whatever I have shared. Could you please confirm?
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
right,
sir.
sure. So yeah, one of the question was job prospect as compared to other engineering streams. Okay, where do you want to compare in the first place? Right. So there is no need to compare. Oh, so let's look at what we have, right? So do you want to compare what are the opportunities in other fields and compare the number of opportunities in EC? Is that what you guys want, or you want to know, okay, where are the opportunities? Right. So let's not get into that compare as compared to other domains. So every engineering domain has good enough opportunities for deserving people. So the last word is very critical for deserving people. So whether it is electronics, computer science, mechanical, electrical, civil, whatever it is, right? So for the deserving candidates, every industry, every domain has good enough opportunities. It's never that opportunities are not there, right? So if you take electronics, so all right, I got your question. Future trends in VLSI, right? So if you take from the EC as a domain, and then you see what are the kind of opportunity. Whatever I have listed is not exhaustive. These are some of the things that are predominantly seen in the market, but there could be beyond this as well, right? In a very broad sense, we have embedded, and then VLSI or IC design or microelectronics, whatever you call it, and then we have signal or image processing, uh, and then MATLAB based jobs for what do you call that as? Uh, we call it as yeah, a modeling and kind of things. And then there is something on power electronics, like for drives for industries based on power electronics. Then you have process automation for industries and home. You have companies on robotics. So these are all the major areas where we need engineers with electronics background. So so in that context, let's see one by one. Yeah, I don't have too much of detailed. I am not putting any detailed opportunities available in power electronics, process automation, and robotics. But then, yeah, if you are interested, we can get more into exploration into that. Right. So the widest and the largest opportunity provider for EC engineers is embedded. So in under embedded, if you see, there are multiple things that you cover. It could be firmware development, it could be system software development, device drivers that the engineers to develop that, and there are IoT system level development, and then IoT, under IoT there is again you have implementation level. So there also you have programming level developments, and then you have board design, which is PCB design, and all these things. So all this specific comes under the domain of embedded. So again, if we go under these domains, again different application level, or each of these things will be spawned out into different application. For example, if I take all these things, all these type of jobs exist in automotive domain. So automotive itself is a vertical. Under automotive, embedded, these are all the things that exist. Again, if you take consumer electronics, under consumer electronics, we still have all these things: firmware, system, software, device drivers, everything. You go to servers and server computings, there also you have. You go to communication systems, there also you have. For example, if you want an example of companies where different product lines, so if you take NXP or Philips, Philips is now more of a home automation, this thing. NXP, if you take, they are heavily into automotive. You take Infineon, they are into automotive. So if you go to these kind of companies, the same job role, but your expertise is into automotive. You go join Cisco, you join Juniper Networks. So these are the companies where you will have job opportunities for communication related products, network communication, networks, and network communications. It could be a Wi-Fi router to the mobile routers and the mobile base station routers, yeah, internet base station routers. So all these things are developed by these companies like Cisco and others. So even there you have all these type of jobs. So similarly, every domain, every vertical of this thing has its own requirements for under these categories. So embedded forms the largest part of our options availability, uh, and the large number of engineers are basically in this domain, right? This is what we call as a core domain, one of the core domains. So beyond this, when we get into VLSI, yeah, I am from VLSI background. So slowly there is a convergence between VLSI and embedded systems at some levels. It is not at all levels, but at some levels we do converge. All right. So what is VLSI? VLSI is a fundamentally the base of all your electronic system developments. You develop the ICs, you develop the platforms for people to develop on that, right? So your embedded system sits on what? It sits on a board, and on the board you have ICs for computing, for communication, for everything you have ICs there, right? So the ICs form the fundamental base for your systems in electronics. So that is a very core of electronic domain. So I have heard from many people that okay, there are not much opportunities in VLSI. VLSI as a domain is a small domain as compared to embedded. You cannot compare the size of or the volume of embedded to VLSI. So that is something that makes people feel that the opportunities in VLSI is less, right? It is not about the future of VLSI. VLSI is the one which gives you the base for any new developments. Without that fundamental base, you can't develop anything new. So what will happen at the base? Now a new architecture of processor comes. Who develops that? A new processor architecture is done by the VLSI engineer. Now the new architecture comes for processor. Now you got to change everything at your system because what is the new architecture is doing? It is doing a faster job or a better job or a low power job. Then the embedded engineers will have more work to ensure their system level software that they develop or the firmware they develop is able to fit onto the new architecture that is developed by the VLSI. So this is what I said, they are converging at some points. Not everywhere, but there are some places where they converge with each other. So under VLSI, you have majorly we call them as three major domains. One is the digital domain, another is analog design, and the FPGA based design. They're very broad classification, and under this there are multiple opportunities, be it in digital design or in analog design or in FPGA based designs. Whatever I have listed here is a very brief this thing. Under every this thing there are subdomains, sub verticals. So engineers or people have opportunities in all of these verticals. So once you get into any of these things, you generally work on that specific area for your complete career, right? So under digital design you have architecture development, which is system level architecture, where people develop uh, the IPs or in the small designs. The IPs are called intellectual properties. The small uh, blocks of the design which are integrated at top level to make a system are called generally IPs in the industry term. And then you have system level architectures, and for all of them you have people who write the RTL, which will convert the architecture into register transfer logic, which is either done through Verilog or VHDL. You would have studied these subjects. and then these whatever they write as a design is verified using concepts called UEM. They are methodologies, UEM or system Verilog. So this is a very brief in the digital design. So similarly, you have analog design. There also you have circuit design and then layout design. Uh, Under digital design, whatever we design, there is something called as physical design. That is also referred to as backend or layout in some contexts. So backend exists in both digital and analog. So that is how it goes. So when it comes to FPGAs, we have something called front end and back end. So in every domain, it is the same thing. The front end means the uh, logical part of the design. How does the logic work? What it should do? What should the system do? How it should behave? How it should behave in this context? Okay, the reset comes, this should happen. Set comes, this should happen. Now the processor is asking for add function. Okay, this should get activated. So this is all comes at your design level. Now how do you implement this? Is at the backend level. So that is what we do in the backend. So that is there in digital, analog as well as FPGA. We call it as front end and back end. Back end is more of physical in nature, how it comes on silicon. Most of you might be aware that whatever we develop is more often developed in on silicon uh, as a process technologies are heavily driven by silicon based technologies, which is using CMOS. So CMOS is a technology. Silicon is the foundation material that is used to make these materials for the devices on which the transistors are manufactured, right? And now there are different types of materials that they are exploring for various opportunities under semiconductors. So in that now there are something on graphene devices, GaN devices. A lot of R&D work is going on. There are some development activities in those areas, especially for lighting and other domains, display domains, especially. There has been some R&D work, but the volume of jobs is not very high, so we are not talking about it. Other than, but there are opportunities in new technological development in VLSI as well. Mostly in GAN devices and all. There is future is the we still have we with the CMOS that we already have working on. Currently, what we are talking about is a 4 nanometer technology. What we are all working in some of the companies, and we know that 3 nanometer technology will be what we know as the last node in the current way of doing this. But even for us to exploit all the uh, opportunities that we have, uh, even though we are at the edge of the bleeding edge technology, we see that the same technology will run for another 20 to 25 years. So at least till 2040, we see that the industry will be driven by the current technology. So any new technology will come only after another 20 years into production level. So a lot of people have this concern when they talk about VLSI. What is the future trend? What is the future of it? What will happen to the jobs? So nothing to worry. We have been hearing to this. Not just we, our uh, kind of uh, veterans who have been in this industry for last 40, 45 years have heard the same thing since 1960s. Okay, so nothing has happened, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, if something changes, a new thing will come, then there will be migration, right? So people have thought, okay, beyond 5 micron we can't go. From 5 micron we can't go to what we are talking is 5 nano, right? We have scaled it 1,000 times, and still we are working, right? So it is you don't have to worry about that, because without this you can't build any new systems without this, right? So that is the future of VLSI. Somebody asked me that what are the trends in VLSI. So these are the trends, right? So with the old technology itself, we have not optimized a lot of things. Now people are focusing on how do we optimize what we have not optimized in the past. So one of the things you might have heard is Moore's law. Moore's law is the one which drives the electronics industry. You might have heard, I'm not sure. So if you have not heard, what it says is the the density of transistors per given area doubles every 1.5 year or 2 years, right? So that's what it was predicted. It is a prediction. It is not a law. It is not like gravity, or it is not like Newton's law of motion. Right? It is a prediction that somebody made in 1950, 1960, and it was made by Gordon Moore, who is one of the co-founder of Intel, and Intel has been driving this craziness of uh, technology shrinking, and everybody was running behind that. Now, when people started seeing, okay, we can't run behind this any further, then people realize that they have not done a lot of optimizations. They have not looked at new architectures of development at various levels. So a lot of effort is going in coming up with new architectures and new methodologies, new ways of doing things to improve speed and reduce power. Now everything is moving towards ultra low power. Now you want IoT devices, right? Everything you want connected systems. So the data is high, the communication is fast. So now, but you want everything to be in your on your fingertips. So you want it to be on handheld devices. So handheld devices means battery operated. You can't have a bulky device battery operated in your hand. You want to operate with very low power. You want a mobile phone which charges 1 day and you can use it for 3 days. You don't want it to drain out in half a day, right? So a lot of new architectures are coming in ultra low power methodologies for development of whatever was developed in the previous generation. So that is why I said there is a lot of still a lot of scope in terms of development. So this is on VLSI. You have anything on this? Can talk. So yeah, signal processing and all image processing. There are opportunities in these domains as well in terms of modeling and all. Yeah, when it comes to AML based video analytics, NLP, all these things, again, it is the fundamentally signal processing. Then again, for implementing them, you go into embedded systems, or if you are not interested in a bulky system, you want to implement them, then you come into a VLSI system so that you get it at a much less in a much lesser area and much lesser power. So the major work starts with modeling, board level design, system level development, proving of the concepts. And yeah, if the requirement is not having power requirements, you want it to be at a low cost type of implementation model, then people will go with board and embedded systems. If it is a requirement is on ultra low power and they want the speed to be very high, they want the device to be very compact, and it doesn't matter if it is a little costly, but when there is volume, so if there is huge volume, let's say there is a millions of requirement, millions of chips are required in a specific domain, then they will come to VLSI to implement these things. So similarly, you have other opportunities in power electronics where for industries, um, uh, the drives, power drives for all the control systems that comes under the electronics domain. The process automation is a big thing which is taking new this thing. Industrial wise, there was a lot of process automation which was done in the last era, but now the industry 4.0 is pushing for a lot new level of automation in terms of industries to optimize the productivity of the production industries. A lot of process automation, robotics based work is coming into these industries. Even at home, people want a lot of automated systems for homes. So it could be as simple as today people want a robot which will do the home cleaning. They don't, after this COVID-19, people don't want to have maids at home. They want to have a robot which will do cleaning. So it will do the mopping, it will do the removing of some objects that are kept here and there. So it does the cleaning, home cleaning. So a lot of new things are coming up in such situations. So these are the job prospects and opportunities that are there in this electronics as a stream. Uh, yeah. So we heard that there are some interest in terms of higher studies. Uh, higher studies. This is the right time to go for higher studies if you want to go for higher studies, uh, because of the current situation that we are in. The job market will be low for time being. And instead of that, if you are interested in higher studies, this is the right time to go for higher studies. So because the industry is going through a down right now, but then yeah, very soon it will bounce back with a lot more opportunities. By then, if you are an postgraduate, it is good for you. But then doing post graduation from anywhere and everywhere is not going to make any difference, right? So if you are interested, go for higher studies in premium institute, because we don't need too much of guys with post graduation. Very less number of requirements where we need people with post graduation level expertise. So if you are going, go to good places where you have uh, good enough opportunity to work on real time systems, right? Then it makes a lot of difference to go for higher studies. Higher studies has become one just a tag for a lot of people, just to have an MTech or an MS or MBA, whatever they call different streams. But then for industries, it is painful to hire a postgraduate who is worse than a undergraduate. That is a situation that has arrived in the recent past, and that is where a lot of colleges has people realize that okay, we don't want to hire MTech guys, right? So a lot of MTech seats were left empty in many colleges in the recent past of last 4 5 years. Before that, probably MTech people used to opt for though, and most of these people, how it has become is if you can't get a job after your BE, then go for MTech, and at least after MTech you'll find a job. That's not the way. The way for higher studies is you want to learn in depth of what you have learned in your undergrad. That's the concept of uh, post graduation. But the way it has been is it is okay. It is okay now with this option. I could not make it. I will try to make it with another one added option. It's not like that. It's never going to work like that, right? So people need to be very cautious about why they are choosing to go for higher studies. Otherwise, it is a waste of 2 years of your time, and it is a overweight for the company who is hiring you for no added contribution from your side, right? So the various areas are there. These are very limited. I just captured here. Microelectronics. Under microelectronics, you have various domains under this. Yeah, one of the domains I missed to mention in the opportunities is CAD. CAD is computer aided design. So most of you must have used either the Cadence or some freeware tool when you did a VLSI uh, lab in your seventh or eighth sem. I don't know which semester you have. So you use that tools, right? CAD tools. Those are called computer aided design tools. So there are opportunities in CAD tool development as well in the industry. So if somebody is really interested in very good in programming, they can uh, look for an opportunities in CAD tool development as well. Yeah, and in every domain there will be a requirement of engineers called as application engineers. They are the people who understand the product features and then support customers across various industries or domains at different requirements, right? So these were a couple of opportunities I had missed earlier. And then there is VLSI and embedded systems, and we have programs in communication, neural networks, and many more. If you have any specific question in higher studies, I can take it up. My humble request is please don't go for higher studies as a next level option to get a job. If you are interested in a deeper understanding of what you have learned, and if you want to really get to the depth of some subject, please go for higher studies. And yeah, definitely if you are interested in research, you should go for higher studies. All right. Coming to the the current issue topic, the COVID-19 impact and effect. COVID-19 has a very varied impact at different levels and different industries. If we take manufacturing industries, it had a very drastic impact of the situation because everything had to be stopped. All production has to be stopped, right? There are a lot of jobs that have been lost, and there has been a huge impact. So there will be some impact in the days to come on every domain, because once the production is hit, then the people who are working in the production companies are hit. They are also the consumers of what anybody and every others produce. It could be produced by a software company, it could be produced by a electronic company, it could be a processor, it could be anything. Finally it is a consumer, right? So now the consumers are hit badly, then they will think a little bit in terms of their buying needs would have been slowed down, or they would have put a stop or a halt right now for some time. So there will be a slow impact on other industries in gradually, and it would go for another 6 months to 1 year, right? So beyond that, what has happened with the impact of it or the effect of it is that people have started looking for new methodologies, new opportunities uh, to fight or to combat against any such situation in the future. A lot of demand. If you have seen, if you have observed, now we are talking on a video conferencing. So did we ever talk like this on a video conferencing earlier? Webinars have become a talk of every social media today. Was it like this 3 months before? No. Now, to make this happen, now Google or any of these video conferencing facilities, they have to up their quality of systems. They have to up their capabilities, and all these things require more hardware, more people, more developments to happen, right? So there are opportunities, there are disadvantages. It has come both hand in hand. So it takes time to stabilize, but then it will definitely give us a impetus to jump higher than what we were, or bounce back higher than what it was. This year 2019 to 2020 was expected to have some downturn in the industry by design, but with this it has hit a rock bottom, and once it goes highly down, it also bounces back with the same speed. So it will take time, but it will bounce back with the same speed, and it will go much higher. The demand will go much higher than what it is today. So this is our assessment of COVID impact and effects on the industry, and future impact on the industry, and how it will turn out to be. We are seeing it would create more opportunities for people, in terms of engineers at least. Uh, yeah, there are some industries that are hit very badly. For example, travel industry is hit very badly. uh, Transportation for the local people, not the goods. Transportation of goods has improved, whereas transportation of people has impacted. Tours and travels have been impacted badly. The regular workers have been impacted badly. Automotive is heavily impacted. All the new car buyers, nobody is buying the new cars, right? So there has been an impact, and yeah, it will take some time for people to come out of that impact, but then there are more opportunities in the future because of this situation. So it has always been said that people, we start looking at being more innovative and inventive when there are problems, right? So issues are at the source of innovations, right? So then the last part, I don't know how many of you are really interested in this, how to be successful entrepreneurs. So one of the basic thing that we have observed in the market today is it has become more of a fad for people to be entrepreneurs, uh, and all are fascinated by the kind of acquisition deals that they would have seen, right? So a lot of you guys would know how what was the acquisition deal of Instagram, right? Or acquisition deal of some social media companies, right? So based on such acquisitions, people uh, have started developing a kind of fascination towards being entrepreneurs. It's not bad or wrong to be fascinated to be entrepreneurs, but then entrepreneurship is not about fascination or fad. It's about a purpose. So if you are strong on a purpose to solve a problem, you should focus or look at being an entrepreneur. The fundamental thing that drives you to be there or sustain and move ahead is the passion to do that, and the commitment to make a difference to other people than to yourself. If your focus is that, then you can be most likely a successful entrepreneur. If you might have also heard that like 1 in 100 companies succeed, so 99% of people or 98% of people who start company fail. So this is what you would have heard by now in most contexts. So who are those 98 people who fail? Why do they fail? What makes them fail? These are some of the fundamental reasons which I spoke about, are the ones which make them fail in the first place. We ourselves have seen, after we when we were starting the company and after we have started the company, there are hundreds of new companies who are registered in our domain itself. So forget about others. If you talk embedded software and all, there are thousands of them. So they all get into this pad, and then they want to start a company. Starting a company is very easy in India. Well, it's not just in India, in any country for that matter. They say it is easier to start a company in US than in India. So it is not about starting a company or registering a company and having a fancy designation like, okay, I'm the founder CEO of this company. It's about what is the value you are trying to bring forth onto the table. What doesn't exist? What is the new solution you are bringing onto the table? Why do you want to do this? If you are able to answer those things, with the strong conviction of why you're developing what you're developing, then there is a possibility of being a successful entrepreneur. Yes, there are a lot of challenges of being an entrepreneur uh, with the system that we are in, especially in the Indian context, especially in the domain of electronics, where if you are involving VLSI, it is a costlier affair to be an entrepreneur than in software and other domains. Yeah, there the kind of investments required in software and probably even embedded is not as high as in VLSI. So in those areas, we still have a lot of entrepreneurs who are successful and have been able to build companies. We have companies who have built OEM, like complete equipment manufacturers here in India. But if you see, there are hardly any IC product development companies in India. There are hardly any. There are few of them, very good few of them, with whom we have also worked with them. So there are very less in that. That is the reason is that the kind of investments that goes in and the risk versus reward is too high. So it's a too high a risk, too high a reward. Uh, I can't say too high a reward when I compare these the acquisitions of the social media companies like Instagram and all. Those I feel are uh, highly overvalued for whatever they have been. It's all the emotion, the people that are driving those numbers. We don't know what will happen when, but and reality of the situation is very different than what we see in the media. So, for example, if you take this Uber, the Swiggy, so everybody is in loss, but the kind of investment that they have raised is all in like hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So it's a different game altogether. It is not that everybody will be there, right? So you can also be there, but then what is the purpose and what is that you want to solve out of creating a journey of entrepreneur is critical, right? So this is all I had on being a successful entrepreneur. The rest all you'll figure out if once you start the journey, and if you really want to have more in-depth discussion on this, you can take my contact number from your department and then get in touch with me. So we'll be happy to talk to you. All right. You have any questions? Then I can take questions. Any questions, Praveen?
I think there are no questions, sir. If participants don't have any questions, no. I think I have one. Though, hello, sir.
Go ahead.
Though some students have some skill sets, they have corresponding tools, probably
Mm-hmm.
software or CAD tools,
Mm-hmm.
still they don't, not able to get to jobs. Probably not even only in VLSI, other
Okay.
fields also. What could be the reason?
All right. So skills as in fundamental skills. See, the way industry is moving today is the amount of patience that is left with people has reduced, right? So why I'm saying this is engineers also want uh, to have their pay packages increase year on year very fast, and companies also wants to have productivity of engineers at the same speed, because when the expectation from the other side has increased, the companies also have increased their expectations, right? So this is something which I have observed over a period of last 15 years, from when we started to what we are dealing with today. When I started, I had patience for at least 3 to 4 years to wait for a good, decent salary. But today, people have uh, a patience of maximum 2 years. So the expectations also have gone up. When we got a job, a basic understanding of tool was good enough to start a job. Now if we have to hire them, we expect them to have in-depth knowledge of the, not just the tool basic knowledge, in-depth knowledge. Along with that, we would expect they would have done some real good work, so that we can get the work expected from them within 1 month or 2 months or 3 months of their onboarding. So it's all on the return on investment that is driving it.
Yes, sir. I think as I've heard some industrialists, they usually say if you know if you are very good in tools or skills, you just put a particular tool, it's enough. But nowadays they are also expecting some technical knowledge behind that. So
That's true. That's what exactly is happening.
that is
So
important.
yeah, earlier we used to go with the tool knowledge, and the industry used to import the technical knowledge. Now people don't have patience. So that is what driving us also to become like this.
Thank you, thank you.
I think there are more lecturers and the professors in the meeting than the students.
Yeah, some students are also there. Okay, sir. If you have anything to say, shall we close?
I don't have anything else unless there are some queries or questions.
There are no queries, sir.
All right. Thank you guys. Thanks for your time
Thank you, sir.
and thanks for joining. All right. There are some messages. All the messages have been addressed, is it? Okay.
I,
Opportunities, future
yeah,
trends of VLSI, job prospects. Okay.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Sure. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Patel sir, for. I mean, I hope it was useful. I am not sure. So your feedback from your students and from the faculty would be helpful. Whether it was a useful webinar, or some, if you can help me with some survey kind of a thing, and then let us know what was their feedback. It would be helpful.
Yes, sir. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
everyone.